work in healthcare, depending on what you're talking about, you might see someone who is doing something like this, and if no one's monitoring, let's say, the death certificates, if no one's looking at what is happening every single day in their department very, very closely, all of these things can be missed. And then again, he ended up killing a few more, right? After that, if they had been able to have enough evidence against him when John Shaw reported him, if you can hear something in the background, that would be Millie Kate barking at someone outside the door. No one's here, but she barks at people across the street. So if you hear that, that's what that is. Okay, so there were 67 excess deaths in females aged over 65 compared with 119 by 1998. Shipman's trial began at Preston Crown Court on the 5th of October, 1999. He was charged with the murder of 15 women by lethal injections of dimorphine, all between 1995 and 1998. So he was using morphine, and his mother was given morphine all during her cancer struggle. And it said, of course, it told us that he watched her health decline, watched her slowly die, and that he did notice specifically that when she was given morphine, her pain dissipated for a while, which of course is the whole point of using morphine, but it has to be controlled. And the thing is, he being a medical doctor, back then I'm sure they did not have the kind of systems that they have in hospitals now, where you have to check out materials, drugs. They have these automated machines. You have to type in all this information. It's nearly impossible to steal medication or misuse medication in the field. I mean, people get away with it all the time, but it's not nearly as prevalent as it used to be. So there have been great strides in how we control specifically medication in hospitals. All right, so between 1995 and 1998, 3 years, give or take, 15 women were murdered, and they are Marie West, Irene Turner, Lizzie Adams, Jean Lilly, Ivy Lomas, Mariel Grimshaw, Marie Quinn, Kathleen Wagstaff, Bianca Pomfret, Nora Nuttall, Pamela Hillier, Maureen Ward, Winifred Miller, Joan Melia, and Kathleen Grundy. Shipman's legal representatives tried unsuccessfully to have the Grundy case tried separately from the others, as a motive was shown by the alleged forgery of Grundy's will. So yeah, of course, if they didn't have any other motivation in the other 14 deaths, they certainly had motivation with Kathleen Grundy, because they had that will, which was the piece that probably tipped the whole investigation over. That's what really kicked everything off, because that is 100% money is the primary motivation in most murders. Even not necessarily serial killers, because you don't see a lot of serial killers even stealing. The only thing they'll typically steal, of course, as you know, are some sort of like a piece of fabric or a ring or a necklace, a trophy they can take with them. BTK, the newest reports on him, the updates on him, are they found yet another one of his hidey holes, and he was they found a journal, and he tried to talk in like riddles, or talk in he would use words, and the way he would structure his sentences and things, it would be really hard to follow. And he probably did that cryptic messaging just because he wanted to write out his thoughts and feelings about what he had done and relive those experiences. But yet, he didn't want anybody to find that journal and then know exactly what he had done. But unfortunately, there had been enough, he was already convicted, of course, and there was enough information gleaned from those investigations that they were able to right now, they're easily saying that he's connected to a few other deaths, and this journal is what pushed it over the edge on those. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to change his sentence. It doesn't mean that he's going to get out. For sure, he's never going to get out. But he is, he may be facing, even more time, which I understand that there has to be justice. And I think I've mentioned this a couple times before. It's very frustrating to me when the court system, you've got somebody who's in there with like 10 consecutive life sentences, and then you make them go back through go through the court system again. And I'm not saying that it's wasting taxpayer money. I'm just saying that what is the end result here other than closure for the family? Closure for the family, closing a cold case, those type of things, that certainly they are important. And I definitely think that you could do those things without having a trial, even if they don't confess to it. I don't know. I just feel like we waste an awful lot of money keeping someone in jail with 15 life sentences when that's not typically necessary. And a lot of these cases are tried all at the same time, just like this one, because you wouldn't want to have to do 14 different trials. You would just want to group them all together. And I do understand, though, why they would want Kathleen Grundy to be separate from that, because if you didn't consider anything else in these other murders, at least in Kathleen Grundy's, you've got some hard evidence. So that may be the only one that gets a conviction. So it's a big risk for prosecutors to take. I mean, imagine if they had put, if they had taken Kathleen Grundy out of that, they would not have been able to share that information. They would not have been able to share anything that had to do with her. So grouping them all together was an attempt to make sure that all of those women received justice. They didn't want any reason for him not to be convicted. Now, on January 31st of 2000, after 6 days of deliberation, the jury found Shipman guilty of all 15 counts and one count of forgery. Mr. Justice Forbes subsequently sentenced Shipman to life imprisonment on all 15 counts of murder, with the recommendation that he be subject to the whole life tariff, to be served concurrently with a sentence of 4 years for forging Grundy's will. Now, what it means by whole life tariff, from what I understand, in the UK, they don't do death penalty, of course, and their life sentence might be 30 years or 60 years. Let me look. So a life sentence may not truly be a life sentence. If you have someone that lives a very long time, they may actually get out at some point. Now, I would like to think that they would be so old that they, wouldn't live that long, or I don't know how to spell, would die sometime in the process, kill themselves, very common. Okay, here's the meaning. The whole life order, formerly a whole life tariff, is a court order whereby a prisoner who is being sentenced to life imprisonment is ordered to serve that sentence without any possibility of parole or conditional release. So that's what it means in England. So you can get life imprisonment and you still may get paroled or have a chance for parole. Very interesting. And a lot of what's caused, these changes in our laws where people are getting out, you will hear that, and I know I've talked about it. You will hear in many of these cases where early on in a serial killer's life, when they're younger, even if they are involved with the law somehow, whether it be petty theft, even sexual, some sort of a sexual crime, they will get out of jail early because they don't have any past anything else on their record, and then they'll also maybe get out early for good behavior because we have, not just nationally but worldwide, we have a tremendous overcrowding of prisons. So the thought process is, let's go through everyone that we have right now and who is the least likely to commit a crime if they're released. And many of these people have been released and then they go out and commit the crime again. So I have a real problem with that. I have a real problem if you are sentenced to a particular life sentence, if you will, and it's a violent crime like this, a murder, taking someone's life, there should never be a question that you would ever get out. Never. You are obviously not safe to be out in public. And I don't care if you're old. There have been people who are paroled when they're 89, they still go out and kill somebody. Just your age does not indicate that you have turned your cheek and decided not to, change your ways and not kill people again. Usually it's intrinsic inside of someone. So, and of course, something has caused that. I think in the case here of Shipman, the only thing that I can find that would be the catalyst for his actions would be his mother's death and how that devastatingly affected him to the point where when he decided to kill, it was elderly women or older women. I'm not going to say elderly because I just don't agree with that being 65 is not elderly in most cases. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh yeah, it was elderly people like his mother, and that's why he was using the diamorphine because she used morphine when she needed help, and for whatever reason he was trying to relive that, or maybe he wanted to seek justice for himself. I mean, serial killers' minds aren't normal. Like, they're not going to sit there and logically, most of the time, think through these things like I'm talking to you. They're not going to do that. They have a completely different way of thinking. And of course, that's because we have, attributional, I probably shouldn't say defects, maybe delays, or it's where that gray matter is not growing like it should. It's where they don't have that empathy. It's where they don't have the ability to, feel for anyone else. They themselves don't really have feelings beyond what is pleasurable to them. So, in this case with Shipman, I feel certain that affected him so badly that those are the people that he gravitated towards. Elderly women, older women, similar to his mother and her issues. But now most of these women did not have a lot of health problems. They were perfectly healthy and fine when they went into the hospital. He just killed them with the diamorphine